boys and girls. It's been a long time since we've been together, and we really miss you all. And I got to see Mr. Scott give his Sunday school lesson on caring, and that was wonderful. And I hope you all got to see that. Today we're going to be talking about Paul, the Apostle Paul, who was Saul, and then when he had his dramatic conversion on the Damascus Road, if you remember, when he became blinded with a great light, and then a voice spoke from heaven and said, "Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?" And he said, who is it, so I know who I'm persecuting? And Jesus said, "It is me, Jesus." And after that, Saul became Paul and was one of the greatest, really the greatest apostles. I can't wait to meet him. He was such a devout Jew. He was Sanhedrin of Sanhedrin. I mean, he was what is the other one? Not Sanhedrin, I'm messing up. But anyway, he was a Pharisee of Pharisees. He was so devout. He kept Shabbat and Pekos and the Sabbath, and he kept the Rosh Hashanah, and he kept everything, Yom Kippur. He was, did the washing of his hands, ceremonial washing of his hands, like you were supposed to do three times a day. He prayed 3 times a day like Daniel. He did everything according to the Talmud, to the law. He knew the law inside and out and obeyed it and followed it. And he was on his way, when he was going to Damascus and had this blinding light experience, he was on his way to actually go and kill the people of the way, the people that followed Christ, because he was so incensed by the fact that they thought it was Mashiach, that the Messiah had come. And he's like, if the Messiah had come, Jews would know before anybody. And of course, Jesus was Jewish, but a lot of the Jews didn't believe in Jesus. And so he was vehemently opposed to Jesus and his gospel, and killed many, many Christian believers in the early days. So he was on his way to Athens, which is a place in Greece, and he had been all over preaching and teaching, because Jesus told him that was what he had to do. He had to spread the gospel throughout the world. So he was in Thessalonica before this, and he was in prison, and there was that miraculous earthquake, and his feet were in stocks, both of his ankles, and they opened, and his chains fell off, and they miraculously, Silas and Paul miraculously got out of prison. And it was just an incredible time of supernatural events. And Paul loved God. He loved the Shema. He loved him with all of his heart, mind, and soul. And he knew that it was the most important thing in his life. He lived every day, every minute, just for God, only for God. And he was very devout. So Jesus was really smart to know to pick Paul and convert him and have him be one of his foremost disciples. He was an excellent speaker, and he was so knowledgeable and educated about the Jewish law, and then, of course, learned the Christian truths that Jesus told the disciples. He became part of Paul's heart and part of Paul's testimony to the world. And we have a memory verse for today, and it's in Isaiah. It's Isaiah 40, verse 28. And it's, "Do you not know, have you not heard, that the Lord is the everlasting God to the ends of the earth?" And it's Isaiah 40, 28. So think about that as we learn about this part in Acts. It's Acts 17, verses 16 to 31. And it takes place in a place called Athens, particularly in the Areopagus, which is really fun to say. It sort of rolls and tickles your tongue. But actually what it was a hill of acres that were in Athens, where they had the tribunal, where there would be these judges that you could go to and have matters decided. So that's where he decided to go. But he was in Athens, and he was waiting for Silas to come and Timothy to join him. So instead of just sitting somewhere and waiting for them, he decided to go around Athens and look. And he was so shocked to see idols, because he knew the Torah and he knew the law, and you shall have no other gods before me. You shall not worship idols, and all of the commandments. You shall not steal, you shall not lie. And believe me, Paul would not steal or would not lie or would not say anything that was hypocritical or hurtful or slanderous about anybody or mean to anyone, because after he converted to a Christian, of course, before then he was not so kind. Obviously he was killing people, but he was a great man of God. And so he knew that idol worship was like, yike, really, really bad. Like, whoa, that is naughty, naughty, naughty. And so when he's walking around Athens, he sees all these idols. And there was even a statue that said, "To an unknown God." Because the people in that day were afraid that if they didn't worship a God that existed, that the God would be harmful to them and cause problems for them and maybe hurt them or cause an earthquake or whatever. So he saw this statue. It said, even to an unknown God, they were praying to this unknown God. So he very smartly and wisely interpreted that as they were religious people, because they even were worshiping an unknown God. So let me read to you from Acts what we have here in chapter 17, verse 16 down to 31. Okay, so listen along with me. Now, while Paul was waiting for them in Athens, his spirit was aroused within him when he saw that the city was full of idols. So he was debating in the synagogue with the Jewish people and the God-fearers, as well as the marketplace every day, and with all who happened to be there. Also some of the Epicureans and Stoic philosophers were conversing with him. Some were saying, "What's this babbler trying to say?" While others, he seems to be a proclaimer of foreign deities, because he was proclaiming the good news of Yeshua, that's Jesus, and the resurrection. Paul was occupied with the word, testifying to the Jews that the Christ was Jesus. And that's out of Acts 18:5. So that was his main job, his main heartbeat in life, was to testify to the Jews, because Jesus said, take it to the Jews first and then to the Gentiles. And the Jews became an obstruction and just a heartache to him, because they just refused to believe. So he went to the Gentile world afterwards, but this is before all then. And he says, he seems to be a proclaimer of foreign deities, because he was proclaiming the good news of Yeshua and the resurrection. So they took Paul to the Areopagus, saying, "May we know what this new teaching is that you are talking about? For you are bringing some strange things to our ears. So we want to know what these things mean." Now all the Athenians and foreigners visiting there used to pass their time doing nothing but telling of hearing something new. So Paul stood in the middle of the Areopagus and said, "Men of Athens, I see that in all ways you are very religious. For while I was passing through and observing the objects of your worship, I even found an altar with the inscription, 'To an unknown God.' Therefore what you worship without knowing, this I proclaim to you. The God who made the world and all things in it, since he is Lord of heaven and earth, does not live in temples made by hands, nor is he served by human hands, as if he needed anything, since he himself gives to everyone life and breath and things, and all things. From one he made every nation of men to live on the face of the earth, having set appointed times and the boundaries of their territory. They were to search for him and perhaps grope around for him and find him. Yet he is not far from each one of us, for in him we live and move and have our being." So Paul tried to tell them that God is in us and he's living within us, and all of our movements, every breath that we take is a gift from God, and to be thankful to God for all things. Our Creator God has gifted us also with creativity, just like he gifted Paul with this incredible ability to speak beautiful, eloquent words that were meaningful to these people that were very educated philosophers and Stoics in Athens. And we can be creative just like Paul was, because God is a creator. He created the heavens and the earth, and everything that is in the earth, and to the end of the earth. Is it time already? Getting close. So just remember that you have the power to be creative, just like Jesus gave Paul the power to be creative, and that we can tell everybody, just like Paul did, that God created the heavens and the earth and everything that is in the earth. And we need to be really, really thankful for everything that we have, for our families, for our leaders, for our president, for our Sunday school teachers, for our ministers, and for our parents, for our brothers and sisters, for our school teachers, for that we can walk and that we can breathe and we can talk and we have hands that we can use. And Ian, I'm thinking of you with your little injured finger, and I want you to know I've been praying for you every day for the Lord to bless you and heal that finger. And I was so sorry you had a bike accident and hurt yourself. And but we need to do those things for each other and love each other and pray for each other and not speak bad things or use words that aren't kind, because the God is looking down. He's saying, there's my child right there. Did you just see what he did? He just helped his neighbor. He just smiled at somebody that was sad. God knows everything that we're doing, everything. He sees everything that we're doing. And so we need to honor him and respect our fellow man and our brothers and sisters and our parents, and try to be the very best people that we can possibly be. Because one day, a friend of mine says that we have a date on the back of our neck, the day that we're going to get out of here, when we're going to leave. And it's all over. It's going to be the end. And when that happens, we're going to stand before God, and he's going to show us everything that we did. And he's going to show us the things that particularly he didn't like. So let's try to fill up our basket with good things and good deeds and loving works, and try to keep things that aren't good and aren't kind and aren't of God try to eradicate them all completely from our lives and not do anything that hurts the Lord, because he doesn't want us to have any idols. He doesn't want us to worship gods that we don't even know about, like they were doing in Athens to an unknown God. Can you imagine? But anyway, that's the way it is, and it's that way in the world a lot, because people don't know. They worship things instead of the Lord. But we can tell people about God and that he made the heaven and the earth. And so I'll talk to you all later. And the Lord be with you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. And the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Bye-bye.